Welcome to this edition of You Can Get There From Here. I'm Dr. Joe Moore, Chair of the Department of Communication and Digital Media Production at the University of Central Missouri, and it is my pleasure each week to get to visit with some of our alumni. I get to talk to them about what they're up to these days, and I get to find out how the program helped them get there. Today, we're visiting with Paris Norvell. Paris was a May 2023 graduate of the University of Central Missouri with a degree in digital media production with an emphasis in audio, and now he works in television at Kansas City PBS. Paris, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Glad to have you. Did I get that right? May 2023, is that when you graduated?
No, it was actually December of 2022.
December 2022. You got there a little bit earlier than I thought.
Yeah, just
all right. Well, I'm glad you're with us today. I love seeing you in the control room. That looks awfully familiar.
Yep.
I could have sworn you were going to go into radio. I had you in the radio production class. You had the voice. You knew the stuff. You did an internship in it. What led you to television?
Yeah. Radio was fun. I liked radio. I've always been interested in radio, but I've just had a ton of interest over the years. I've always been interested in kind of all of the facets of media production, and graphics and graphic design was something that I also kind of specialized in. And through my time actually working at KMOS, also at UCM, that kind of got my foot in the door a little bit in the TV world, a little bit and video production. So I've always just kind of been all over the place. And when after I graduated, I reached out here and was able to start freelancing at first and contract working here. And that kind of just set me on the path here, and I've enjoyed every bit of it. So
I'd forgotten that you worked at KMOS. That's what's nice about having a KMOS on our campus.
Oh, definitely.
As a PBS affiliate, we have connections across the country, and worworked out great.
Oh, yeah. Yes, it did.
And I also remember you did the coolest demo reel I've ever seen, and a lot of it was using your voice and then using your graphic skills. So, what is a motion graphics designer and a live graphics operator? What do you do?
Well, the fun thing I think for me is I do something a little bit different every day. So, as a motion designer, here at the station, KCPT, mainly doing a lot of our content is focused on documentaries and local kind of Kansas City stuff. So any graphics that go into a video production or a documentary that you'd see on air, like lower thirds or full screen graphics or data visualization, or anything that's graphic design or is animation, pretty much gets handled by me, typically in like a Adobe After Effects type of workflow. And then on the live side, which is what I do here in this room, is the live graphics. So for any show that we produce, the kind of our main show is Kansas City Week in Review with Nick Haynes. And that show, I'll be running and creating all the graphics live. So when the guests are introduced, you run their lower thirds off, any kind of, again, full screens or like election results or data visualizations, anything like that. I'm doing that live here as the show goes, or like with our membership drives. We're a PBS station, so we do membership like pledge drives, and all of that is done here. All the graphics for that are in this room, done live.
And I think people who watch a lot of television news, the graphics are they almost fall into the background. They provide so much more information. You're watching the host on air, you're watching the reporters in the field, but we forget that those graphics are coming from somewhere. They're generated. There's a specific look, specific feel. We had a professional on campus several years ago. He worked in television, and I remember specifically a student raising her hand, and he said, "What's your major?" And she said hers was graphic design. He said, "To do some motion graphics, she'll be my new best friend." So
exactly,
I think you found that your skills in graphics really can translate over there.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, motion design is a huge field right now, especially in media, and it's something that's it's a very sought after field. It's something that I think a lot of people kind of gloss over. A lot of times, motion graphics are kind of lumped in with like the video editing process, but it's really its own thing, and it has its own kind of workflow. And the higher up you kind of go in professional productions, the more it's valued. So it's definitely a growing field right now.
Well, I'm happy for Kansas City PBS because they got a really talented guy doing it for them.
Yeah.
Which brings me to my next question. So you did your internship at KCUR, which
Hmm.
was a public radio station.
Right.
Now you're working with Kansas City PBS, which is a public
Correct.
television station.
Yep.
Is there something about public media that appeals to you, or did you just kind of is that just kind of how it worked out?
No, definitely. I Public media is definitely something that has appealed to me. Like I said, actually, the since I got my start at KMOS, which was my first introduction to public media, and yeah, public media is actually really important to me and the message of it, and essentially getting started with KMOS down there in Warrensburg just really opened my eyes to the service that you provide with public through public media. You know, there's so many people, um, for example, in rural Missouri, who, I mean, this is such a big part of educational content. PBS Kids for free, all the content. I mean, if you have a $15-20 antenna, you can get this content for free. Um, I have found through my own anecdotal personal experience that it's a little more fact based. It's a little more. It doesn't have a lot of the cliches that media kind of falls into these days of being, super right wing or super left wing. In my personal, just my personal experience, I think that the public media system is a lot more kind of both sides and tries to its best to be fact based, unbiased. So I really appreciate that. And just the message of usually it has a more community approach. There's no traditional advertising that goes into our funding model. So um, there's more of that community value, purpose, service driven, value driven kind of work that I kind of relate to. And yeah, once I saw kind of how that whole system works at KMOS, I immediately was like, well, I also, I really have this interest in radio, so let me look at some of my options in public radio, and that's how I got with KCUR. And then after KCUR, I said, or and after graduation, hey, why not try? I worked at KMOS. Why not try and reach out to the people at Kansas City PBS at KCPT and yeah, it's just been kind of that whole stream of public media. So it's been great, and it's definitely been intentional on my part.
Well, I love that you talked about the service aspect of it because that's one of the university's
Definitely.
tenets is education for service.
Mhm.
Uh, I like how you talked about the news in public
Right.
television seems like it's more fact based. There's not that left wing, right wing,
Right.
that leaning because you're not selling advertisements. You're
Exactly.
getting public funding. You're
Right.
there to serve. So really dig that. I really like that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
You mentioned too in your testimonial that the thing about our program is that you got a chance to explore many different avenues of multimedia.
Right.
Explain what you mean by that.
Yeah. So, like, my whole program during my whole time at UCM, I was an audio emphasis. And as you can tell, I ended up in a full time job that has nothing to do with audio. So, I mean, I kind of had painted myself in a little bit of a corner of audio when I had went through the program, even though, like I said, I have all these different interests in graphics and whatnot. But even though I was an audio emphasis, I think that during my time at UCM, I still had every opportunity in the world to do camera work, to do graphics work, to just kind of touch all areas of media because it's so diverse and there's so much that goes into media production and the different niches that you can get into. So even though I was audio, I remember taking multimedia production specifically with Dr. Newsom was such a eye-opening class, and I think really got me really made me want to pursue graphics and motion motion design and just that kind of whole that whole area. Because like before that, I really didn't consider myself as like a visual kind of creative visual artist, um, because I think kind of the traditional, uh, if you traditionally in school, if you're not good at traditional drawing, traditional painting, or some kind of more traditional art, you're not really seen as a visual creative. But then, as I got older into more media arts, more graphic arts, computer, visualizations and stuff. And then especially after taking multimedia production with Dr. Newsom, really seeing like this is definitely something I enjoy. It's something I like. I think I actually am like a visual kind of person, even though like I said, I kind of painted myself a little bit in a corner of audio, but how all these interests come into play. So yeah, I think that the digital media program, like I said, even though I was audio, I still got to do all these different things that led to all these different possibilities and ultimately kind of helps me end up where I am today.
Well, you talk about that you painted yourself into a corner of audio. I don't know if that's true because like you said, you did have some
Right.
video classes, you had some experience there,
Yeah,
and you took
definitely.
the initiative to go and work at KMOS.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
you were able to get some of that video. Your classes might have been audio centered, but your
Right.
experience was a
Definitely.
lot in television. So
Yeah.
that's what we love to hear is that the program is broad enough that yeah, you can have a specialization area, but we're not creating television professionals or movie professionals or sports
Yeah,
or radio. We're creating digital media professionals. And
exactly.
you're a perfect picture of that because you have the sound, you have the video, you're doing the graphics. That's so exciting and so fulfilling for us to see. So,
Yeah.
as you have come through the program, you are out there living the dream, making it happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd like you to give some advice to the current UCM students in digital media production and in communication. And then what would you tell somebody who's thinking about UCM for furthering their
Sure.
career?
Advice to current students, I think one of the biggest pieces of advice I could give is like, and I kind of again been taking this a bit from Dr. Newsom, but you have to have good inspiration. I think a lot of times, people can, I don't know, just get stuck in this way of thinking of like thinking that maybe that everything has to be 100% original or that everything has to, they have to reinvent the wheel. But I think that when you have good inspiration, um, it really informs the work that you're trying to do. And I think that to be a good media creator, you also have to be a good media consumer and you have to consume good media and you have to, like, your inspiration, it has to come from a place, something that you value, right? Because if you have that as a baseline, it really kind of sets the standard for you. So, like, if you're able to critically look at your own work and compare that and say, why, if there's this piece of media, a show, a design or something that really inspires you, that makes you, this is the work I want to create. And you can look at that and say, well, where is my work falling short? And just be honest with yourself. And, try not to make a lot of excuses of like, well, they have all this money or they have these great cameras or, just strip away kind of that aspect of it and just focus on where are the messages, where's the communication, where's the, what's missing from my work that's in theirs. And I think if you do that, it's really fundamental in kind of taking the next step in your career and kind of leveling up to where you're not just making, you know uh, I don't know, just leveling up the work to just make it at that more professional level. I think is really important to have great inspiration and to always be seeking out new inspiration and to be a smart media consumer. I think is just really important. So that's probably the main advice I would give. And then the other one was what was the other question?
Well, I want to wrap up with that first because I love the way you put that to find that inspiration
Yeah.
that, find something that moves you, that inspires you, and then
Right.
how can
Right.
you recreate it or do something more with it?
Right.
You made a great point, and I tell students this all the time. It matters what kind of camera you have, what kind of audio equipment you
Yeah.
have,
Yeah. Right.
but you're the most important piece of equipment.
Exactly.
Because if you don't have the creativity and the willingness to put in the effort and make it happen, doesn't matter how great your camera is,
Right.
it's not gonna work. So, I love that. That's
Right.
some great stuff. The other
Yeah.
que
And
go ahead.
yeah, I just want to say, going off that again, you just got me thinking of another piece of advice, which is like, um, which I don't know, maybe some digital media students wouldn't love to hear because I know I wouldn't have loved to hear it, but it's like, the communication part of it and the more theoretical, visual communication sometimes is actually more important than the technical side of things. And I think a lot of students love the technical aspect. I know I did, and just like making fun stuff and working with cameras. But the more you go, the higher up you go in terms of professional world. Um, in my personal experience, I think that the communication aspect has actually been valued more. You definitely have to you have to know what you're doing. You have to have these technical skills. But as you go higher up, your ability to articulate messages visually, creatively, is really what employers are looking for. So you really are the most important aspect of it. Like, After Effects is just a tool. It's just like a hammer. So you have to have the architect. You are the architect. You're, putting the plan in place. And After Effects is just your hammer. Your camera is just, your hammer. So it's just a tool, and you have to know how to use your tools. But the most important part is the design, is the planning, is the what message are we trying to send, and how can we do that creatively and effectively. So that's another piece of advice that I would definitely give, is to start thinking about the things that you create kind of on that higher level of like, how can we effectively articulate a message that we're trying to send.
Wait, Dr. Newsom is gonna listen to this episode over and over and over. You're talking about
I
the
hope I can make him
multimedia.
proud.
You're
Yeah.
talking about the theory. He's gonna love this one. So thank you very much for all of that. The other piece of advice was for a student who is thinking about coming to UCM and
Right.
studying digital media,
Right.
studying communication. What would you tell them?
I would tell them kind of how I mentioned in my testimonial of like, if multimedia and media production, digital media is something that you think you're interested in, um, I mean, just the ability to explore so many avenues of it and never feel like tied down by one certain aspect, or like personally me, I never felt limited in the things that I could do. I think the only limitation really is yourself and your own motivation and how much you want to put into it. And you know for better or for worse, UCM isn't Harvard, it isn't MIT. So you're not going to have like, you know employers aren't gonna the piece of paper isn't what matters, but what matters is going to be what you put into it. And I think that UCM is a perfect example of a school that if you put that motivation in, if you have a drive, if you have a passion for these things, you'll be rewarded with what you want. You have access, like we mentioned, to KMOS. It's not guaranteed that you'll work there, but just there's practicum. Just being in that environment, having that around, is huge. I mean, it's a huge part of what got me to this job, because there's at least one PBS station in every state in America. Most of them have like three or four.
Mhm.
So um, just that. But then in terms of the program specifically, like I said, I mean, there's CTV, there's the Beat, there's the Mule Skinner, there's every facet of media that you could kind of want, is there, and you're not tied down necessarily to any one thing. You're able to kind of dip your toes in many pools, and do as you please. So I think I mean, it's definitely an advantage. I know a lot of uh, curriculums and programs aren't necessarily like that. So it's definitely a big plus. And I think, yeah, it's definitely a school that if you have the motivation and drive to do something, that you'll be successful.
Well, Harris, you're the proof's in the pudding. You've dipped your toe in all those different ponds.
Right.
You tried all those
Yeah.
different things, and it's worked out great for you, and we're so excited for you. We're proud of you. Thanks for being
Appreciate
on
it.
today and sharing your experiences with us.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you so much for having me.
And thanks all of you for tuning in today. Remember, you can catch every episode on our YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/UCMMN. That stands for UCM Media Network. You can also listen on Spotify. Special thanks to Jake Mager for creating our theme music for the show. This is Dr. Joe Moore reminding you, you can get there from here. Have a great day.